Intentional planning. Oh, intentional. Everything is intentional. Better be. Planning for me is the intentional planning of the week or the intentional planning of the day. Brendan Bouchard, good friend of mine. We go back many, many years. I saw him when he first came on the scene, and he just took off like a rocket. Got millions and millions of followers on Facebook. Great trainer, great speaker, and was monotasking the online course business, having online virtual courses. That was his assembly line principle concept that he really has dominated. Now, I've heard him say that he owns his morning, and I've also heard him say that in the morning he also plans some of the other parts of the day. Well, before I heard him say that, and this is maybe 3 years ago, I used to always plan the day before. I always did that, and I felt irresponsible if I was planning the day the morning of. But yet things would happen during the day where I had to create a plan in the morning in order to execute the plan in the afternoon. For example, someone is visiting from miles and miles away, who let's say is a good friend of mine, and they happen to call me in the morning and say, hey, I'm around, can you make some time and can we have dinner? Now, in my previous mindset of habits, I thought, well, that's a disruption. I'm going to say no to that person. But if that person's super important, that person can get me on stages, or that person's a dear friend of mine, then I don't care whether it's productive or not. I'm going to say yes, and I have to plan it in the morning, to make arrangements so that my kids are taken care of, and I'm getting to meet him or her at the right time, at the right restaurant, or wherever. So going back to Brendan Bouchard, he says, I like owning my mornings, and sometimes, I plan the rest of the day in the morning. Well, that's what I've started to do as of 3 years ago, not just started. But what I do is I don't plan my entire day in the morning, but I give myself planning time, about a half an hour, to plan the day, to maybe put the final, just the final touches on the day. Maybe I'm putting the big rocks in the jar, that analogy where you have rocks, gravel, sand, and water, and you got to put the big rocks in, otherwise the other stuff won't fit. I put the big rocks the day before, and even maybe a few days before when I'm planning, or it's put there for me by Sandra Bravo, or by Mia Beckham, my executive assistant now, locally. Maybe it's put there for me. But I like owning my morning, and I like having prime time where I take about a half an hour to put the final touches on the day. It takes about half an hour of time to plan. So far, we're in 90 minutes, right? I have, and I do this before I work out. Intentional reading before I work out, which is early in the morning. Intentional copywriting before I work out. The planning I do after I work out. So I do 2 half hours. I take a small break, 5-minute break. I do half hour, and then I come back to do another half hour. And believe it or not, 2 hours of time, half hour slots each, intentional thinking. I will take time to think, especially if something big is about to happen. The thinking precedes the feeling, which precedes the acting, the action, which precedes the result. So before I plan, I got to think about what plan I'm going to do.